get started, I want to welcome everyone for joining us. My name is Lydia Early. I'm the Director of Community Engagement here at STCC. And I would like to welcome you to the We the Women Tea Series. As we all know, we are all living a new normal. Our world is definitely a different place right now. But one thing is for sure, we know that we still are longing human interaction and we still looking to be socially connected. So we hope through these sessions, we can bring a little of that piece of connectivity to you all. We hope that you guys will enjoy the conversation and the setup that we have today. Today, we will feature one of 3 phenomenal women making a difference in our communities. So please grab your teas or coffees and get ready to enjoy an engaging conversation with this amazing woman. Before I introduce our speaker, I want to share some important information with all of you regarding our event today. First, we will be recording this meeting and posting it on our STCC website for viewing. Second, our event today will consist of a 45-minute discussion, followed by 15 minutes of questions and answers from the audience. Participants will be muted all throughout the event. Please post any questions that you might have on our chat. There will be a host who will be monitoring the chat, and they will be forwarding the questions, and we will make sure to allocate the appropriate amount of time so that we can get to cover all of the questions. Lastly, I want to thank our sponsors for this event, the STCC Office of Multicultural Affairs and the STCC Division of External Affairs and the Foundation. So now I will introduce our guest speaker, Ms. Talia Gee. I will read off her bio. As Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, Attorney Talia Gee is responsible for the development and implementation of proactive diversity, equity and inclusion initiatives in hiring, career development and leadership opportunities in support of our city's strategic plan to continue to foster a working environment, one that will help provide opportunity for all of us to succeed. Attorney Gee is a graduate of St. John's University in New York City and received her MBA and Law Degree from Western New England University. Gee previously worked at Community Legal Aid, the law firm of Sullivan, Hines, and Quinn, and the New York Yankees. She is a member of the board of directors of the Springfield Boys Girls Club and co-creator of the How to Wear Your Crown event, which focuses on the empowerment of Springfield area teenage girls. Now, without further ado, I will welcome our guest today, Ms. Talia Gee. Welcome. Before I start asking questions, I really just want to take a moment to thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule. I know things are very crazy nowadays and what we're trying to do and how we're trying to accommodate our current normal. So thank you again for being with us today, Talia.
You are welcome, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to jump right into the questions. So the first question is going to be, can you take us through the trajectory to your current job?
Yeah, so I knew that I always wanted to be a lawyer. I used to watch Matlock with my grandfather. And if you remember that show, it used to come on, it was black and white when we were watching it. But I used to watch Matlock with my grandfather, and I just fell in love with lawyers and what they did. But I thought that you had to be a criminal defense lawyer because that's what Matlock was. And so I went to college and I was like, I went to St. John's and I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a criminal defense lawyer. And I took my first criminal justice class and I hated it. Hated it to the point where I went to my advisor and I said, I am never going back there. So now that I'm here in New York City and I'm a freshman in college, you need to give me some direction of where I'm going in life. And so he talked to me about business and about being a business lawyer. And I thought that that would be more of a good fit for me. And it did turn out to be. So, you know, I finished at St. John's. I came back to Springfield to go to law school and to get my MBA. And, you know, I worked defending companies in employment law cases. I worked representing employees who were suing their companies, their former employer. But I just never felt like I was doing any justice. I always felt like I was just kind of putting out fires. And so I really wanted a position where I could make an impact and make a difference, and I could be a decision maker rather than working with the decision maker as a lawyer and just providing advice, but never kind of executing things or seeing it the whole way through. So when this opportunity came, it was exactly what I wanted to do. It fit my passion and my career focus, and so I just jumped right on the opportunity.
Thank you. So following that, was it always your intent to come back to Springfield to pursue a career after college?
No, I I loved New York. I did not want to actually come back to go to law school. I knew I was going to law school for sure. Because, you know, I had worked in New York for a few years and I had saw the glass ceiling very quickly. So I knew I needed an advanced degree if I was going to be on a level playing field with other people. So my parents are the ones that convinced me to go to Western New England for finance reasons, that it would just make sense to go there for law school and get my MBA. So that's why I did. But my plan was really to get, you know, my law school out the way and then go back to New York, but that didn't. When I came back, I fell in love with Springfield for what it really had to offer, and that's why I stayed.
Oh, that's awesome, because the next question was going to be, why the city of Springfield?
Because it's home, and it really provides such a good quality of life that I don't think that you really appreciate when you are in those college years. Once you start to settle down, or you're like, oh, there's a real grocery store that I can just go to and I can get there and get back to my house in an hour. In New York City, it's not like that. If you want to go to the grocery store, that's an all-day affair. So I just found the quality of life should just be much better in Springfield. And then I had an appreciation for the people and the neighborhoods and the diversity in Springfield, and then decided to stay.
Okay. So what does it mean to be the first African-American female in your role?
It is everything. Sometimes I really have to pinch myself that I've been given this opportunity. The biggest thing though I always have to remember is that I'm paving the way for other people. So, you know, I'm the first female, I'm the first African-American female. The next person, or at some point, I'm hoping that, you know, we have our first African-American female police chief, or fire chief, right? Or our first transgender fire chief or something. You know, my hope is to pave the way for diversity in other areas as well.
Great, thank you. Who inspired you and why?
I would have to say my parents. My personality is a very good mix of both of my parents. My mother is very much so, I call her the beauty queen. She will not go outside without makeup. She always has her hair and nails done, and she requires such a high standard of life, which I think is so inspiring. And my dad is always joking and laughing, and nothing is that serious, and everything is fun for him. I don't think I've ever seen him have a bad day. And I love that about both of them. So they definitely both inspire me.
Awesome. And they it seems like they bring a balance to each other, right? And
they do.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm wondering how they got together, but.
Hey, as a female leader, what has been the most significant barrier in your career?
I would say it is, so my job as the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer is really to make sure that people from all walks of life have the same opportunities to get jobs. In 10 seconds, that's my duty. And so to accomplish those goals, I have to get buy-in from management as well as from the employees so that I can get perspective from both sides and work together to address issues or, implement policies. I find it difficult to always get buy-in from both sides because sometimes people think, oh, well, you're talking to the manager, so that means you're on the manager side, or you're talking to the employee, so that means I can't trust you and you're on the employee side. And that's far from what it is. I'm really here to resolve the issues and make it a better place. So it's getting that buy-in that can be difficult sometimes.
The next question is a little loaded. So do you experience resistance when you are leading men?
Yes. But to be fair, I experience resistance sometimes and support from the only older white male in the room that I thought would be the last person that would be supporting me. So it's been an interesting journey.
Right. So what is some of the advice you share with young women when they're entering a male-dominant profession?
I'm very, I don't want to say blunt, that's not the right word, but I'm very realistic with people, and I don't like to sell them a dream. So I do share with young women that you might find some resistance, and you never know where it's going to come from. So, and the other thing is, as I'm sure we all know as women, sometimes we have to work twice as hard as our male counterparts to be respected or to not hit that glass ceiling, or to make sure that our voices are heard in rooms. And so what I usually tell young women that are getting into the field is to make sure that you are prepared so that nobody can call you out, and to make sure that when you're speaking, that you are well educated and prepared about what it is that you're speaking about. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know the answer to that, but let me find out and get back to you. Don't feel like you have to know all the answers because you're in the room with all of these powerful people.
Absolutely. So what do you think is the most significant barrier to female leadership?
Their voices not being heard and respected is definitely a barrier. It's definitely a barrier. And the imposter syndrome is very real. I have definitely seen some females display that imposter syndrome that Michelle Obama talks about a lot, but in a sense of what I like to call the princess syndrome, which is where, a female will be the only female in the room. And so she thinks that she has to be overly feminized or overly dramatic to make sure that everybody knows I'm the female in the room. You don't have to be that person. You can just be you. You don't have to pretend to be somebody that you're not. So that can definitely be a barrier. And the last barrier is definitely our commitment to families and our child care commitments and things of that nature.
Yeah, now that you bring that up, how do you balance work and life responsibilities?
I am definitely a schedule person. I try to plan and schedule everything as much as I possibly can so that I can keep track of everything. And it's the people in my life. I have an amazing partner and my boyfriend who, because I can be a workaholic. So when I start getting overwhelmed, he is very quick to tap me on my shoulder and be like, you need to dial it back some. You need to spend some time with me. You need to dial it back some. That and taking care of myself.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I know we as women tend to overwork ourselves, take a lot on, especially those of us who are out serving our community and stuff. So I just want to make sure that I mentioned that we need to always remember that we matter too, and that we need to take time for ourselves as well. So finding those balances, I know that for women can sometimes become very overwhelming. So I'm glad that you kind of highlighted that and stuff, and that you have someone that kind of brings you back. So that's really, really good. So when facing challenges as a leader, what encourages you?
The fact that I owe it to the citizens and the employees of Springfield who employed me, to make sure that issues are resolved. Sometimes it can get frustrating, but the reality is my job is bigger than me. When you're a public employee, your job is bigger than you, and when you are, the first in a role, you have all these eyes on you. And for me, I can't, go and cry in a corner. I've got little girls and boys that are watching me.
Yeah, definitely. I know that from the minute I heard of your appointment to the city, I was very intrigued. And I know that I've always have reached out to you, and you're always being super excited to participate in anything that we have invited you to be a part of and stuff. So that answer, I know that when you talk about being real, you definitely are. You 100% always say what you mean. And so it is important, because those are qualities that we really look up to, when we're looking up to leaders in our community. So I, again, want to commend you for that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to add on that, one thing that I kind of touched on is that I'm the first in a role, but because we're public figures, we have little girls and boys who are looking at us and aspiring to be what we are, and they're going to be in our roles soon. So we do have a duty to make sure that we're doing right by those people. And that's why I like to stay involved with organizations like, the Boys and Girls Club, which is my heart, and How to Wear Your Crown, my event for teen girls, so that I can make sure that they can see, hey, listen, you can be from Springfield and stay here and come back and give to this community and be a part of this community.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think we sometimes don't do such a big job in highlighting the people that are from our community and have, been raised here and came back here. That's why it was important for us to ask, why the city of Springfield? Was it your intention to come back? Because oftentimes people go to college and kind of like don't want to come back. So it is important that we highlight the people that do come back and that are doing big things in our community. So our next question is, or did you have a woman leader as a mentor?
I did. I have had quite a few mentors kind of over the course of life, but I'll just touch on one who is a woman who is, I don't know if she's still there, but she worked at Mass Mutual. And I remember I was connected with her when I first graduated law school, and she was really exactly what I needed at that time in life. Some of the best advice that she gave me was that, like, don't wait for the perfect moment, start living now. And I vividly remember I was in Boston with my parents, and I was talking to her about a job, and she said to me, she said, life is not a dress rehearsal, it's the real act. So if you are going to do something, you need to get up and do it. And I was like, oh crap, she's right. Like, I better get up and go do this thing. So she was really, and I guess you just reminded me, I need to reach out to her and see where she is.
That's really good. It's really good to look back too and see who have influenced you in certain ways, right? Because you probably would have not been thinking about, like, right now you just kind of was like, oh my God, then she did say that to me, and I got up and I went out and I went for it. So that's really awesome. Let's see, what else? What are 2 things you would want people to know about you?
I guess I would want people to know that, like, although I have this big title, I'm real and I'm human. And especially for people in Springfield, like I need to hear from you about what it is that you're looking for. So, you know, reach out to me, approach me, let's get together when it's safe to do so. Let's definitely talk, because I definitely want to be a sponge and kind of absorb all of the feedback and the information that people would like to share. It's not to say that I can do everything. That would probably be my second point. I cannot do everything. So sometimes I get feedback from employees and they want certain things that, you know, would be fantastic, but it may just not be doable for reasons that I may not be able to say.
Yeah. It definitely, and I mentioned before that you're the type of individual, at least for my connections with you, that what you say you're gonna do, you follow up. I remember having a conversation with you about something I had learned from, I believe it was Hartford, Connecticut, and their fire department, and the opportunities that they're given to younger females that are like trying to get into that male dominant field. And I was like, oh my God, you know, we should be doing that in Springfield. And I know you picked up the ball and kept running with it. So for the audience today, just know that when she say that, connect. If you have any need, anything you wanna like address, she will definitely try her best, if not get it done, with whatever you bring to her. So just wanted to.
We wanted to do that, but and we were actually planning to, but now with everything that's going on,
Yeah.
our plans are in the factors a little bit.
Yeah, we know the COVID-19 has ruined a lot of plans for a lot of people. So we look forward to it in the future. Let's see. What are some goals you have set yourself in your life or in your career?
You know, I'm definitely a person that just, I have all these bright ideas and then I'm like, wait a minute, you have to reel it back in. So I've actually, you know, tried to focus on being strategic about where I'm making differences and where I'm kind of starting out, to look for things that may need to be improved. So you know, my hope, my large goal is that the community and the city, particularly police and fire, have a trusting and great relationship. And if I can, what's the word I'm looking for? If I can help to foster that relationship, then I definitely want to. A personal goal is that I actually want to learn how to play the drums. I've always wanted to. And I saw Beyonce in concert a few years ago, and she had a female drummer that had this big, gorgeous, curly hair. And I was just like, those are life goals right there. To be on the stage, playing the drums for Beyonce with that beautiful hair. So I'm definitely going to start taking drum lessons.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to the next question, which is, what are you most proud of in your life or in your career?
Certainly being the first Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer that the city of Springfield has ever seen is quite an accomplishment. And I definitely just have to pinch myself every time I think about that. But probably my most proud moment is honestly passing the bar. And it's because, you know, so I applied to law school. I applied to 9 law schools. I was accepted into one, which was Western New England, and I was waitlisted on a second one. All the other 7 I was not accepted in. And so usually when you're not accepted, the reason or the way you get accepted into law school is because they think that you can ultimately pass the bar and become a lawyer. And so when you're not able to do that, you start to mess with the school's numbers, and then they don't let you in. And so, excuse me. And so, you know, I got into Western New England. I graduated, which was quite the accomplishment. And then I took the bar and I failed the first time. And I was devastated. And I was like, okay, maybe those other 7 schools were right. Maybe I wasn't cut out to be a lawyer. And I remember crying, just, you know, all in my feelings. And I was like, my life is over. I'm never going to get a job. And my mother was like, you need to relax. You need to snap out of it and just, you're thinking about what's going to happen in 20 years and you need to focus on what's going to happen in the next 6 months. And so I dusted myself off and I really committed to studying, and I passed the bar the second time I took it. And I passed it in Massachusetts and New York. And when I tell you, I was floored by my score. I was shocked at how well I really did. I thought they had the wrong score and this was all a mistake because my score was so high, honestly. And so then I took the bar. So I took Massachusetts and New York together. The first time I failed them both. I took Massachusetts and New York together. The second time I passed them both with flying colors. Then I took Connecticut. Admittedly, I barely studied, and I passed with flying colors again. And I was like, okay, you know what? You have just proven to yourself that a little bit of hard work and dedication can really pay off for you. So that was definitely one of my proud moments, for sure.
That's great, and definitely a testament to your character. Once again, you could have given up. A lot of people probably would have given up, but that was what you wanted to do. You went for it, and here you are.
Thank you.
And that's great. It is that's the message that we need to really embed in our young and upcoming females that are looking to set goals, and that's very important that they hear that. So we have another question. Where do you envision yourself in 10 years?
Oh my gosh. I do not know. I definitely will still be in Springfield. I hope to still be the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for sure. I hope to have kids by that time, and be married by that time. But my hope and my goal is to really accomplish some great things for the city by that time.
Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to switch over to two questions that had to do a little bit with our current status. And I want to ask, how have the current pandemic, COVID-19, affected or impacted your job?
So it definitely has. A lot of my job is based on interpersonal relationships, and so a lot of it requires to meet with people a lot, to sit in on interviews, and so those things have definitely been impacted, and they've almost been stopped. And so whereas I would have usually gone out into the community to recruit for positions, I am now faced with trying to find people online. And I don't necessarily like it because sometimes it can be very rigid. So, when I meet with a person in the community, I can say to them, what are your skills? What type of job are you looking for? And then I can say, well, we have this position available. And usually they'll say, well, what does that position really do? And I'm able to explain it to them. It's hard to have that back and forth with a person during a pandemic where everybody's told to stay in their house.
I can totally relate. As the Director of Community Engagement at STCC, my job is all about people, connections, meeting, and this is definitely an adjustment, but we're getting through it.
That's right.
How is the City of Springfield responding to the current situation? If you have anything to share with us.
Yeah, I mean, shameless plug, I would say definitely pay attention to the city's Facebook page and the city's website, because they're posting all about what they're trying to do. At this point, I think the City of Springfield, and honestly the whole country, is just trying to figure this whole thing out, figure out what this COVID-19 is, how we can protect people from it, and how we can respond to it and fight back, and get resources for the city so that our healthcare workers, fire, police, dispatchers, people like me, people that still have to come to work every day, are safe as possible, and that we're also not getting it and then spreading it on to our families.
Yep. Those were our two questions regarding COVID-19. So now I'm going to move on to another section of questions. And what does it mean to you to give back to your community?
It is so important. It really, really is. One of the, I don't want to say growing pains, but one of the things that I realized very quickly, like I mentioned before about being in this position, is that it's so much bigger than you. And so, you know, it's fantastic that you have this fancy title and this fantastic job that you love and great coworkers that you work with. But you also have an obligation to that little brown and black girl that never thought that she would ever go to law school or be a lawyer. You have an obligation to her to show her that it is not only possible, but that you've done it and you walked in the same streets that she's walked in before. And, you know, you grew up in Springfield the same way that she did, and you love to get cheese fries from Antonio's on State Street like she does, and all of those sorts of things. So it is so important, and that's why, you know, the Boys and Girls Club, for example, has definitely given more to me than I could ever give to them.
Yeah, definitely impactful. It is amazing to meet people that are willing to take that on, because not everyone is. And it is a very rewarding when you do see those opportunities with the younger generation, and they see you, like you just mentioned, going into Antonio's and stuff and saying, oh wow, because you do see the reactions in their faces.
Absolutely. And that's why the one part I love about my job is being able to recruit and get out and talk to people, you know, and have people say, you know, I had a female call me and say, well, I'm interested in becoming a firefighter, but is that something I can really do? And for me to be able to, you know, pour into her like, girl, yes, of course you can, and make connections with her and our female firefighters that we already have, and, you know, set up a tour of the station and do all of those sorts of things so that the opportunities that we have in the city can be really real for people.
So if you had to start over from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
If I had to start over from scratch, I would have never quit playing basketball. That is one regret that I do have in life. I let a coach talk me out of pursuing my dream of basketball, and I wish I would have stuck with it. That would definitely be number one. And number two is I would have started to provide myself with self-care and self-love way earlier than when I did.
Wow, thank you for that. Again, we're in the topic of We the Women. We wanted this event to be during Women's Month in March, but obviously, you know, there was something else planned for us. And, you know, just like I stated before, we oftentimes as women take on so much and we completely forget about our own needs. So for you to say that, it is important, and I thank you for that, because we do need to do a better job at doing that for ourselves. Let's see. Okay, this one. Describe one of your biggest failures. What lessons did you learn, and how did it contribute to greater success?
I would say my biggest failure was probably not passing the bar. And definitely the lesson that I learned from it was a little bit of determination and hard work can definitely pay off if you stick with it. You know, I will be honest with you and tell you that I'm an only child, which means that I like what I like and I would want it right this second. So when I ask for something, I want it right now. And so it's important for me to remember that sometimes you're going to have to work just a little bit harder and a little bit longer to achieve those goals or obtain what it is that you want. But if you keep working at it, perhaps you can get it.
Okay, great. So I think we have maybe, no? we're gonna get ready to start taking some of the questions from the audience. I'm gonna get into our chat just to see what we have for questions, okay? Okay. All right, so we have one question. Could you tell us about your job with the New York Yankees and who was your favorite player?
So, okay, so let me start off because this is always a topic of contention. So I am from Massachusetts. I am from Springfield, born and raised. I am a Red Sox fan. However, you have to be a fan of the people you work for, right? So I am also a Yankee fan. And I know that is hard for people to gather, but I do love both. So my job at the Yankees was, I was in the ticket department. So what that meant was if somebody came to the window to buy tickets the day of the game, I would sell them tickets. Before the season or when we were out of season, I would sell tours of the stadium. I would sell packages throughout the season. And then they knew I wanted to go to law school. And so I volunteered to take on other opportunities too. So one of the other things that I did was I would respond to requests for accommodations. So let's say somebody comes to the window and they say, I got these tickets, but they're in the sun and I have skin cancer. Then I would work with them to help them move their seats. So I would do things like that. I absolutely loved working for the Yankees. It's a great organization. I'm still in touch with some people from that organization. And I worked in both the old stadium and in the new stadium as well. So I was able to see a lot and I just love it. My favorite player would have to be Derek Jeter. Would have to be Derek Jeter. One of the questions that I get all the time is, were we able to meet players? And no, we did not. Let me say, I never really met players. And if I was to see one of the players, I would probably just say hi and keep going and treat them like they're any other coworker. I would not be asking for autographs or things of that nature.
Thank you. We have another question. First, this person would like to thank you for taking the time from your schedule to be with us today. As you might or might not know, there is a level of stigma around attending community college. What advice would you share with the students who are listening in and see your achievements and success out of reach for them?
So I didn't mention this previously, but my senior year of high school, I actually attended college. So I think I had two high school classes, and then I attended I think it was called a dual enrollment program that HCC had, and I think STIC STIC has it now. So when somebody asks me about attending community college, my advice is I would suggest that you attend school in the place that you want to go, in the place that you want to live, or where you can get the education that you're looking for. So in other words, if you want to be a computer technician and STIC has a computer, any of those institutions can provide. I do think that there is a stigma around community college. And I'm really, to be frank with you, I'm not really sure why, because the reality is STIC is providing an education and they have a lot of innovative programs that I'm probably shocked by every time I talk to Pam White or somebody in career services that's like, oh yeah, we have that program here. And I'm like, really? So I would not be, I would not feed into the stigma of community college, especially if you're going there. Just because you're going to STIC doesn't mean that you should feel as if your education is less than anybody else's education. One thing that I have definitely learned, especially being a lawyer, is that there are unemployed lawyers who went to Harvard the same way there are unemployed lawyers who went to Western New England. There are unemployed technicians who have gone to STIC the same way there are unemployed technicians who have gone to Western New England. So if you want to pursue a career, get your education and pursue that career. Where I think STIC has an advantage over some institutions is that STIC is very affordable. Whereas some undergrad institutions, people are so strapped with student loan debt that I'm not sure they're ever going to come from underneath that debt. And so I think that STIC really has an advantage over some of those organizations rather than feeding into the stigma.
Thank you. Our next question.
Plug for STIC, by the way.
Our next question from the audience is, what is one of the toughest decisions you had to make, and how did it impact your life? Thank you.
The toughest decision that I had to make was probably taking on this role and becoming the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, because I knew that there was a lot of responsibility that came with it, and that there were a lot of expectations and a lot of things that would impact my life in other areas that I don't think people think about. Like, for example, Springfield has a residency requirement. So if I'm committing to stay in this role, then I'm committing to stay in Springfield and to live in Springfield. So it was a tough decision. I mean, I don't want to say it was a tough decision, but there were definitely things that I had to consider, but I don't regret any of it.
Hi, Talia. How would you want to personally impact your position in the city?
How would I want to personally impact my position?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, what I have tried to communicate to the people, to the workers of Springfield, as well as the citizens of Springfield, is that I'm real, I'm tangible, I'm doing the work. And
okay, so from your eyes, how do you see the city in relation to your position?
So, you know, I am working to do what's best for the city, and what's best for, and what is best for the citizens of the city. You know, the city is the city is a diverse place, right? And so it only makes sense that our workforce, for example, reflect that diversity, and that the people who live here are provided the same opportunities to work here and work for the city as well.
Great. Let's see if we have any other questions. Okay, thank you very much, Talia, for the very informative and candid program. How do you challenge stereotypes and promote sensitivity and inclusion?
Very good question. So it's definitely a long game, and what I mean by that is it's definitely a challenge that you have to continuously work at. What I have found is that when I'm working with people and I'm trying to challenge those stereotypes and also get people to see that their stereotypes are impacting city services or an employee or something of that nature, I try to always lean in on the human element of things. Usually you can connect with just about anybody on a human level. And what do I mean by that? Every human on this earth has, I'm sure, had a paper cut, had their heart broken, you know, stubbed their toe. And so connecting with them on common ground, I have found, has been successful in bridging conversations that have sometimes had to be very difficult, but have absolutely been necessary. Because it is difficult to tell somebody, you know, you've made this decision that might be showing you're a little bit of a racist. How do you politely say that to somebody? So it's been a challenge, but again, it's necessary. And you know, as much as I'm working for the current workforce and citizens of Springfield, it also goes back to what I said before about I'm also working for those little boys and girls, or people that I don't identify as boys and girls, that may become
city in 5 years.
To be frank with you, with, you know, all that is going on right now with coronavirus, I'm really not sure. It is my hope that the city is, that as time goes on, we're more inclusive and more diverse. That's my goal. That's my hope. And it's also my hope that, the coronavirus doesn't impact things a little too much. And what I mean by that is the city is not necessarily hiring the amount of people we were last, trying to figure that out right now.
Yeah, definitely. We are all like in limbo for so many aspects of things right now. But let's say let's just say if we didn't have this coronavirus going on and we were still living our normal life and going about our business, where would you have seen the city in 5 years? Like, did you have a plan? Did you have a vision?
Yes. So, you know, some of my own personal goals that I've been working on, for example, with hoping comes from coronavirus, is I'm hoping that it creates a more inclusive environment for people that have health conditions. And what I mean by that is people that have health conditions such as AIDS and HIV, for example, where those people are often tossed to the wayside because everybody's afraid that they're going to get it. It is my hope that we are now a little more conscious of how we treat sick people after all of this.
All right, great. Next question. Was there ever a time in your life or your career where you had to stand up for yourself?
Yes.
Maybe a few.
Yes, quite a few. Yes, I definitely have had to stand up for myself. To be frank with you, I do it very strategically. And what I mean by that is there's certainly people that are always looking to attack you, right? That's just life. So I have found it strategic to not necessarily feed into every attack that's on you. I read in a book somewhere, the author said, the only way that you can get into a mud fight is if you also get in the mud. But once you get in the mud, you're dirty too. So when you think about that, I don't necessarily want to be dirty, right? I want to stay clean. So it doesn't benefit me to get dirty with somebody else that might be trying to attack me. So I have found it strategic to take the high road. And when I feel like I have to stand up for myself, I stand up for myself, I make my statement, and then I'm done. I do not engage in back and forth. I do not engage in, tit for tat nonsense. And that's just been the strategy that has worked for me.
Great advice. I was writing some of that down, taking notes. Another question. What do you think are 3 important characteristics of a good leader?
Definitely somebody that can communicate difficult conversations or communicate difficult information to somebody. It's ultimately for the best that information be communicated. The second one is definitely somebody that is able to take advice and take direction, but also be able to think on their own and have their own opinion. And then the third is somebody that is prepared and that is not afraid to work hard. And what do I mean by that? The easiest way to take you down as a leader is to expose the fact that you're not prepared. And oftentimes I have found that some of the challenges that I have had with certain people has been from or let me back up. Let me say, as a female, right, it is no secret that we are oftentimes having to work twice as hard as our male counterparts to get the same respect or the same results. And the way that I have found to level the playing field is to be prepared. And it is to be, it is not only to be prepared, but also to be a sponge for information. So I've been able to, and I have found it strategic to take on opportunities that have been presented to me. Not that they're in my job description, not that they're necessarily connected to my day-to-day work operations, but all they'll do is provide me with more information about another area that I didn't know about, and will ultimately help me in the future.
Thank you. So that will be the last question that we're taking on today, as we are just about ready to completely wrap up the session. Before we do so, I do want to thank you again for taking the time, for allowing us to have this conversation with you, and giving us an opportunity to getting to know you a little bit better. I also want to say to everyone else that we do have another session coming up. Our next session is scheduled for May 7th. We will be having Lydia Martinez, who's the Assistant Superintendent of Springfield Public Schools. And we hope that you guys can also tune in and get to know her a little better and get to hear her story. And I want to, again, thank the audience. I hope you guys enjoyed this session. I hope you are all staying safe, and we hope that you tune in again on May 7th. So thank you, Talia.
You're welcome. Thank you again for having me, and to stick to you, to Vanetta, and to everyone that tuned in today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day, everyone.
You too.